If I'm being honest, I've had a few takes on the podcast recording, but I can't seem to quite say what I want to say. And I thought about what I want to talk about today. It was more about the struggles that anyone, or perhaps myself, go through on a day to day basis in basically seeking for financial independence, seeking for more success in life and financials. I think I can say that for most people who are working full time, they're probably not at their full potential of where they can be or who they want to be. I mean, not everyone can say, like, this is exactly what I want to do in my life or for the rest of my life, because for some of us, like myself, I know that there's a lot more potential that I can reach for. And every day I'm looking for new things to learn and new things to challenge myself with, like how to build a website, how do I get into podcasting. All these things that I'm doing now, I've only learned them probably about a few weeks ago. Well, website just probably be more. But all I'm saying is, in this episode, it is going to be more on how to get from your current state to a much better state and how to push yourself moving forward. I always say this thing where when I have a bad day, I would admit to myself, some days I thrive and some days I just want to survive. And I tell myself that's okay. That's okay that there are days, that's okay that I just want to survive for a particular day because today is just not my day to thrive. We all have this sort of problems or challenges we deal with in our lives. You might be going through a divorce or a breakup, or, problems at your job, or just making ends meet. And it kind of sets the baseline of where you are, and it kind of defines where you want to go as well. If you're in a rut or you're in a bad place, you'll realize that, all right, you know what? I just want to reach baseline being okay, and that's it. And that's great enough, because as long as you have that mentality of wanting to reach that line, that's all you need to do. Because when someone's having a bad day or someone is not at a good position, you can't expect them to, be the king of the world and thrive, basically. Because at that point in time, their focus just shifts to just being okay. And once you get to okay, you can actually think about going further and thrive. If I haven't started the podcast with a hi or hello and welcome to the Silent Wealth Journal. This is Zani. Today I will be talking more about basically diving deeper into my milestones, what I've learned, and how I can share with you, what I've done in career and facing through the challenges that I have. I don't really have a script for this, as I mentioned, so this will be pretty raw, and I'm really bad at planning or recording myself on a camera, and that's why I decided to just go on audio for this one. It feels more natural and safe for me. I've done recording on cameras, but it just doesn't feel natural for me as of yet. But this is how I'm doing this for now. I hope that's all right with you, and let's get started. So in my career, what I've done is, my first job was a credit card collector, debt collector. It is really weird because everyone who knows me, they will tell me that they're really shocked with the fact that I've asked for money from people that I don't know over the phone, asking them to pay for their credit card debts. It is a very tough job. It's very interesting though, because you'll encounter a lot of different people from different walks of life, different characters. But the best thing about it is it builds character for yourself. It builds understanding and how to negotiate. And it was probably the best crash course in my communication skills. And I did that for about a year. After moving on I was still in a bank. My first job was in a bank. Second was also in a bank. Also speaking to customers or stakeholders on the phone. In mortgage fulfillment, and then I move on to the legal side of things, preparing mortgage documents, and that was probably about 2 years in total. And then I moved on to a market research consulting firm as a data analyst. It was very interesting because finally I got to do something that I feel that is more aligned to what I learned in the university. I do enjoy numbers, a lot of statistical data and analysis, and that's what I did most. And at the same time, I got to learn about, client relationships and preparing presentations and how to communicate your findings and insights to the clients that paid you for the research that they wanted. So that lasted for about a year plus, I reckon. And moved on because I decided that, you know what, I wanted to go into finance, and that was slowly veering off finance because it was strictly multi-industry. Our clients weren't really from the financial side, so I was missing finance, and I decided to quit. I actually took a 6-month sabbatical. I went back home to Malaysia, spent time with my family. It was probably the best decision I've ever made. I stayed there and spent time, travel with friends, and I also just hung around, be with my mom and dad, and be a son again. I mean, be a stay-at-home son again. I've always been away from home ever since I was 13, especially moving to a boarding school at a very young age and then studying abroad. I still am away from home in a way, but as life goes on, home has its new definitions, and this is where I am right now. After that sabbatical, I got a call. I got a call from a bank for me to work into a business bank, and I was quite shocked because I didn't apply for it, and I just accepted it because I was back and I was looking for a job, and I was quite lucky in that sense that they called me and asked if I'm interested, and I went for the interview, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we want you," and I went in. It was a very short period until I got another call from another bank asking if I'm interested to work with them because they have my records on file from my previous role. It was the same bank that I first started as a credit card debt collector. And then when they called me to come for the interview, it was for a derivatives analyst position, a team member in the derivatives operations. So derivatives, if you don't know much about the deeper part of finance, derivatives, they're a much more exotic type of instrument or security. I think that's also jargon, how to explain this to you. It is a more complex type of investment, basically. So I was basically offered to work in the back office function. And I thought to myself, hey, this is a great start. I've always wanted to go into investments, and finally I got in. That was my first role in investment. It was a custodian role, and I learned a lot from it. I was there over a total of 3 years. The first year was really being thrown in the deep end, not really understanding everything, but I just learned by doing. I look into statements, reading them, understanding what it means, trial and error, see what happens when make mistakes. Mistakes were costly, and we pretty much weren't allowed to make mistakes because we will be told to avoid it because there might be financial impacts. You might cause clients' money to disappear or go in the wrong direction, things like that. But it was a lot of learning on how to code as well. I actually had to code a lot of things because I had to reconcile a lot of things. I had to open a lot of paper statements. So this was back in 2016. So there were boxes of paper statements. We have to reconcile everything to make sure that, client holdings and what we have in our custody is matching. And we kind of have to tick those papers using a pen, making sure that we look at them side by side and these are all fine. And then we file them. So that's very tedious being in the year 2016. And I was telling myself, why aren't we doing this on the computer? I thought this is for the 90s. And then I went to open a few files that we were working on that was made or developed by a few seniors back then. And I just read the codes that they wrote and tried to understand how to replicate it. And that's exactly what I did. I replicate things, changed it, simulated it using different data. And essentially, at the end of it, I created probably a few codes or a few macros or a few templates that takes away all the paper statement reconciliations. So I basically save people time from having to tick paper, save perhaps 2 or 3 hours a day from someone. But that doesn't mean that they got rid of their jobs, but because we were inundated, and normally I would leave at 8, 9 p.m. I'll probably reach home at 10 p.m. those days. And because of that, I think all the initiatives that I took, I kind of got promoted as a team leader back then. And then I realized, like, at that point, this is where I wanted to be. This is where I've been, what I've been hoping for in career, right? Like, I always told myself I want to get into investments, and finally I got in. All these late nights, don't get me wrong, I think it was a very rewarding path of self learning and self improvement of in your career, but the price you pay is despite the fact that I wasn't having any commitments yet at that time because I was living by myself, I can't afford to be really busy at work. But after a certain point, I realized, like, man, I got here just to realize this is not worth the price. Like, at that level, at that career level, I didn't think I was paid that much for the amount of time that I had to give in. But you always have to start somewhere, right? And that's where I feel like that's where I started, and I just had to do this. And then I got there just to realize this is probably not what I want in my life. It's funny because I worked so hard to get in the door, and once I'm in there, I just realized this is probably not what I wanted, and started looking for another role. And then a recruiter reached out to me saying, "Hey, we have a few roles for you if you want to consider them." I said, yeah, just give me something that's not in this field. It's just too much. Because at that point, I feel like I was close to burning out. I must say that I learned a lot. I was given the award for, improving a lot of things there. But that's all it is, it's just an award. It's not a pay rise. So that's the irony of, certain careers or workplace. But once I get there to the recruiter's office, we had a discussion. I remember this day very well. And I told her, I don't want to do what I'm doing. I don't want this industry anymore. Is there any other options in a slightly different industry? I'll go into, I don't know, something more that doesn't take too much of my life away or my time. Because as much as dedicated you are in improving yourself in your career, you don't want to sacrifice your time that can be used not to just relax and sleep more or just have fun and have leisurely pursuits, but it's time that you can use for your own growth. But when you're giving too much of your time into your career is perhaps a set or well-defined series of tasks that you have to achieve to basically keep getting paid in exchange of your salary. But your growth has a lot or much bigger potential than what your salary is. And that's how I've always perceived my career and my pursuit of business or entrepreneur. And when I was talking to her, I wanted to just get out because I want more time to be able to do things outside of work that a job that doesn't take away from my personal growth outside of it. And she told me, I think that's where fate kind of twisted, and she said, "Oh, don't write it off yet. You might not know. You might just had a bad experience in your previous role. There might be good companies out there that might be good for you for your next step or next progress in your career." And she gave me these two options. One was a mortgage company if I want to work there, because I was actually veering towards that one. And then there was a job description for an associate for Vanguard. I knew Vanguard was an investment name. I mean, it was a fund manager's name, but I didn't know about it as much as I do now back then. So I told her, okay, let's see. And she really convinced me, like, this is a good place and you probably find it that you will enjoy this work more. And I told myself, you know what, I'll give it a shot. The salary did not matter because it wasn't it wasn't much different than what I was getting back then. I probably got more when I got promoted as a team leader. But I decided, like, that's not what I want to do because this is too much. I decided to quit when I just got promoted, like after 2 months being promoted, I decided to quit. Most people would be like, oh man, you have a career ahead of you, and that's great. But no, not for me. I would not trade my time for more money, because it takes you a lot of lesson and learnings to realize that there's no amount of money that can actually replace your time. And that saying time is gold, it's an understatement. So I quit my job when I was offered a pay rise and a promotion, because I didn't want it to consume me. So going back to that two options, I moved on with the Vanguard option. I said, all right, let's go for this one. I'll go for the interview. Spoke to the team leaders, they loved me, and I got offered the job. And that's when my journey with Vanguard started. And I must say that it was a turning point for me, because that's when I realized, like, you know what, this is the field that I want to stay on. Despite the fact that I said initially, I do this, I went into the door just to realize that this is not what I want. Vanguard changed my mind. It was a great place to be, and I decided, like, okay, this is, the opportunities are abundant, and I learned a lot there. And I realized, like, there's a lot of prestige to its name, and I want to improve and grow in this field, in this industry. And that's what exactly I did. So in Vanguard, I had two roles. The first one was reconciliations analyst, and then I moved on to my role in derivatives operations as an analyst. So it's called financial analyst. I had a chance to make some improvements, work on mini projects with a senior there. I thought it was really valuable. I was quite lucky that I was appointed with a great boss who is also very supportive of career growth. And the best part about it is that he is also understanding of what it means to start a new family and raise a child, because he just got like a newborn probably a couple of years before I did, and then I did. So, and then I went on paternal leave, and we exchanged notes, and it was a really supportive environment to be in. And that's where I think that, having this conversation, wanting to better yourselves, but also acknowledging the realities that you're in, like raising a family, parenthood, or, taking care of your family, anything like that you are in. We can't just simply talk about financial growth without considering the human aspects to it. And I think this is where I want to emphasize my importance within this podcast. I think I've talked enough in terms of explaining my career journey so far. This podcast was meant to serve more of a warm-up to yourselves. If you want to know what my credibilities are, understanding how I get to where I am today, I didn't mean for it to become sort of a self-centered podcast or episode, but I believe it's really important for listeners to know who they're listening to. And I hope that kind of helps and give you some kind of value. If this podcast has been helpful, consider, free resources that I have, such as money management template if you're looking to improve your financial literacy and your finances, or a free ebook to help you obtain a good background on what you should consider in bettering your financial literacy. Just go to thesilentwealth.com. You'll see all the resources there and everything that I have to offer. And if you're already at the point where you want to take your finances to the next level and want to start managing your money more systematically, consider my mini course called Excel Your Finances. It's also available on my website, thesilentwealth.com. Thank you for your time in listening to this podcast. I hope it has given you a lot of value and opened up your perspectives to perhaps things you've learned about for the first time. I'd be happy to get your input or feedback on the comment section, especially things that you want to hear about or learn about relating to finance and investing. In the later parts of my podcast, I would perhaps touch on entrepreneurship, or what I call solopreneurship, which is what I'm doing at the moment, whilst juggling a full-time job and raising a son and maintaining a healthy family with my wife. I hope that this has been valuable to you, as I always do. I'd be happy to give you more input, and especially getting your feedback on any of the podcasts. I understand this is only the first few episodes, and I know I won't get any listeners because I'm just at the start of the journey, and building credibility will take years. And what I learned recently is, in creating your podcast or anything and trying to reach audience or, showing your value out to the world, the first year is all about finding your voice. And I think this is what I'm doing. I might think that I might have figured it out, but it will change with time. But I hope I've kind of hit it at the right spot. And I look forward to constructive and beneficial podcasts for you in the next ones. This is Itzani. I'll see you next week. Thank you.